All right, I'm going to talk to you tonight about corporate culture, and the reason that I think it's important for everyone is because whether you like it or not, you're going to define it. If you want to be a leader in the video game industry, you are going to define corporate culture. I don't like that. So what I want to talk about is, what is it? Real quick. I think we all kind of understand it. It's either a written or unwritten series of values, visions, norms, essentially a code of conduct that people know how to behave against. It's how we build policies and procedures. And tactical. What happens when people build out a corporate culture? You end up with, some studios use waterfall, some use agile. That's going to define how your product development goes. We have a lot of people here who like to talk about agile, and a lot of big companies like to use waterfall, and that has a different corporate culture. It also heavily impacts things like your hiring practices. And if you don't define your corporate culture, then your hiring practices are going to skew horribly, and you're going to end up with unhappy people. So it also impacts things like evaluation and promotion. So if you've ever been in a place and you never know who's going to get promoted or why, then that means that they have an undefined corporate culture, an undefined set of values, and it's really messing with your life. So the one part that I always like to point out is if you don't define your corporate cultures, you don't know who's going to define your policies and your procedures, and then there's nobody to enforce them, and you don't know who has to follow them. And more than likely, if you're a good employee, you're going to, and the bad employees won't. Who defines it? Leaders. Founders of companies, executives, managers, we all expect that. But supervisors and people with forceful personalities can also define a corporate culture, especially when it's not defined. I've worked at companies before where, for whatever reason, the QA staff were the ones that were like dictating how design was going to go. I'm like, what? What's going on? Why aren't the professionals doing this? Well, that was because the QA manager was a very forceful personality, and there wasn't a corporate culture in there that said, hey, listen, we really appreciate your feedback, but the experts, they get to design the games. So, rampant bad habits. I'm going to go through a couple of them. Did you get your work done? Dude, just get your stuff done today. No, don't go home. You're not going to go home. I can't believe that he gave me that again. Oh my God, it's going to take me forever. The tool broke again. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. It was him. Yeah, sure, I can totally have that done by Friday. Oh my God, there's no way I can get this done by Friday. What are they talking about? Those people are horrible. Hey, dude, can you give me an answer? No. Please, this is your work module. I need your time response. I couldn't possibly give you that answer today. When could you? Next week. Now, if you've worked in the game industry, every person here is going, oh my God, that was totally Bob. Or that was totally Joe. Or oh my God, that was Susan. You know who these people are. So dominating, blaming, giving in, avoiding, these are our bad habits, our collective buckets of bad habits. And if we're not in control of our bad habits start to control our environment. So, excuse me, we've all worked for different types of bosses, and I happen to have worked for a pair of workaholics. Not in the nice way either. These guys put in 60, 80-hour weeks. Well, Boss A wasn't really in control of his bad habits, and Boss B is, which is great. So the employees under Boss A tended to work 68-hour weeks because he was in at 8 a.m. and he was out at 9 p.m. and he might schedule a meeting for 7:30 p.m. or 7:30 a.m. Boss B, not like that. He was like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll get in like 20 minutes before everybody else and I'll stay late with everybody else, but I'm not going to make other people stay late. So the people, for the most part, work 40 hours a week. Managers might work 50 because most managers are also workaholics too. The office environment under Boss A was really quiet and hushed, and you gotta get your work done. Whereas in Boss B, everyone could talk and laugh and joke. Fun was spontaneous. It was a really good environment. So what did Boss B do? He controlled himself. For the most part, these are the listed things. He said, you know what? I don't want everyone to think that they gotta be here and work for me all the time. So he said, if I got to meet with the manager, I'm just going to buy them lunch. Nobody is going to turn down free lunch. I mean, come on. he would do all of his employee-facing work during work hours. What does that mean? I didn't get emails from him at 11 o'clock at night. I got emails from him at 8:30 in the morning. But that's fine, because I'm going to get at 9 and answer them and deal with them. Whereas Boss A might text me on Saturday afternoon asking me about a question. Don't do your employee-facing work off hours. That's a good time, especially if you're high level, to do all that back-end stuff. Take care of the legal things, do all your contract work, all that kind of stuff. So these two people created two different environments. And you can tell I enjoyed working for Boss B, whereas I did not for Boss A. And most people that I know didn't either. And if you're high level, you're thinking, well, that's great and all, but what does that really mean? Where does that impact come in? And this was the outcome. Company A, we were always late because Boss A couldn't possibly let anything slide by him. He couldn't let anybody do anything else. He's a control freak. Workaholics also happen to be control freaks. It's just a nice little awful pairing that they have there. Whereas Company B, he'd be like, all right, fine, it's your responsibility. You do it. I'm going to go over here. We got some stuff done. So shipping on time versus not shipping on time, not working crunch versus working a lot of crunch. Eventually, when people get crunched, they get tired and they get sick of it. They decide that, divorcing their spouse is not worth it, and they leave the company. So turnover is expensive. Anybody here who understands recruiting, you can spend anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 to hire and train a new employee. And that's a lot of money. If you have 5 people leave, you just spend $100,000 on somebody's bad habit. So how do you build a corporate culture? You pick 3 to 5 values. And also I'm talking about corporate culture, but I'm talking about department culture too. So as a manager, I'm an executive producer, I have a staff, they work for me. I have to build a department culture that reinforces the corporate culture. And if you're gonna be a lead designer, a lead level designer, you're gonna be a lead artist, you're gonna be a supervisor of any kind, you're gonna have people who are gonna work for you. And you need to do this too. So even if you're not right now in a leadership position, but you wanna be in one, now is a really good time to start practicing some of these things. So pick a few core values. And then allow departments to choose a couple of specialty values. The specialty value for production is a little different than it is for programming. Define, hire against, build, and enforce your values. So I went and started a small company, didn't go very far, but I did this exercise. And I used communication. So the first thing is I defined what did communication mean to me and my company. And it was open, honest, respectful, and frequent communication. That was a very specific example of it. If you go and look online, Microsoft's version is different than Sony's version, which is different than EA's version. Everybody has a different version of it. Find the version that works for you. The next thing that I did, and I didn't go into it because this is a whole talk, I built 10 questions that we could choose at random on communication when we were interviewing people. And I actually use these questions today because when I'm building for my staff, I want to make sure that they have these skills. So the next thing that I have to do when I'm building up an office thing is I have to build policies that create that environment. And it's not easy because I have bad habits too. I'm an outburst person, okay? If I get angry, I'm not gonna hide it. But that's not appropriate for the workplace, and it's not fair for me to yell at anybody else. It's not good that I would take out my upsetness or anger on anyone else, and I wouldn't do that. And I don't want to scapegoat. I don't want to blame something else either because then I'm not taking personal responsibility. So I have to build an environment for that. So I have 2 minutes to go on this one. Awesome. The first thing that everyone in this room should do, if you haven't done already, is figure out what your bad habits are. We always try to identify our strengths, but we never spend any time going, what am I doing wrong, or what can I do better? Do a 360 review. By the way, world's biggest ego slap. Not kidding. These things are brutal. You think you're the most awesome god of everything, and you find out how much you just suck. Because that's what comes out in these things, and they are nasty. I've gone through one. Whoa, I went home and cried. I'm not kidding. I went home and cried. I was like, oh my God, everybody hates me. They don't. They just are giving you an honest feedback that you're not used to. Then learn how to mask and control your behaviors. Recognize when you're walking into a bad behavior. Oh, I want to get really angry. No, I'm not going to get really angry. I'm going to walk away, going to take a breather, going to calm down. So if you don't know how to do that, find a mentor. Find somebody who's like you. Find another quiet person who can give you advice on all of this. Then the big thing is to develop hiring practices around it. If you pick 3 values and you hire somebody and they're like, oh my God, most rock star person ever, but they completely failed our teamwork test, they failed. Don't hire them. You want to know why? Because they're not a team player and it's going to suck for everybody. And if you've ever worked in a company where there's that 1 guy or 2 guys, man, that is horrible. And everybody else in the company knows it, and they all hate the managers for it. Right down the line, every company, if you want to ask me, I will give you the names of the people that screwed that up. And develop policies to create the culture. If you want somebody to do something, you have to do something first. All behaviors, from an employee standpoint, are reactionary. So you have to initiate something that will encourage them to have open communication, like never allow anyone to yell at somebody in public. Never allow them to have reprisal. Let there be no negative response for delivering bad news. Never shoot the messenger. That kind of stuff. And then enforce the policies. Last point, promise. Enforce the policies. When someone's breaking the culture, call them on it immediately. Make them stop. And don't let them go anywhere. And if you do these things, your work environment will be infinitely better. You will have a really good productivity team. And hopefully the game industry will get out of its awkward adolescence phase and into its adulthood. Thank you very much.